Hey, how's everybody doing today? It is Friday, April 26, 2012, and we're going to give you this week's episode of The Issues. This week we're going to be talking about what's going on around Toronto and especially the world. We're going to focus right now on Florida, okay? It seems that the Chief of Police in Florida in Sanford is submitted his resignation a few days ago, but the member of council there seems to deny it. Now, I want to talk about this because what I find important here is I've had a problem in the past with the way police handle their investigations, and I'm actually going to commend them in some sense with regards to this particular investigation. A lot of the times what happens is you find that police charge people and the matters get thrown out in court, and the reason for that is the evidence collected after the man has been charged is not substantial enough in order to actually prove conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the reason why I'm actually going to commend the police force in Florida is they arrested Zimmerman, the man who shot the teenager wearing the hoodie, about 40 days after the incident took place. They took him into custody the night of and so on, and there's video footage of it, but no charges were actually laid till 44 days later, I believe. And what I'm trying to say here is that gave the police 44 days to produce a really powerful case on whether or not this man should be found guilty. And hopefully in the next few months, we'll see whether or not this matter goes forward to court. The thing that I also want to touch on is this individual who basically left his property with a firearm in hand after being told repetitively by the 911 operator not to pursue the person and not to carry the firearm outside of his property, which he was not allowed to do, is now out on bail. So this is someone that didn't follow the rules when he had an opportunity that ultimately led to him being charged with a crime, and then once again they're putting him back out there, and the whether or not he's going to follow those rules in the future is basically the question that we're going to have to find out the answer to as time prevails. Now, quickly, I want to talk about what's going on in Syria, because we've had a lot of Arab Spring going on there for quite a long period of time. And now that the UN has sent 300 peacekeepers over there to observe what's going on, the news coming out of there has slowed down. It seems that the violence has subsided somewhat. Whether or not it picks up again or not, ultimately, we'll see in the future as well. But what I want to talk about here is the UN was having meetings with the leadership of Syria while this whole uprising was happening. And the problem that I have with it is, why haven't the UN stepped in and done something about this? At least tried to arrest him or said that we are not going to have any relationship with you at all until you stop the violence. It's just sort of a disconnect from what the UN is supposed to do versus what it's actually doing today. Last off, I want to quickly just go through what the rest of the show is going to be. We're going to be talking about Queen's Park and the budget in the next couple of minutes. We're also going to be talking about that in Richmond Hill, a dog got stabbed and is now dead, and the person who stabbed him is charged. And we're going to talk about that and what that means to you. We also want to talk about education, as Ontario is going through some education information, and as well, Quebec last night, about 80 people were arrested during this student protest. Last off, we're going to talk about the LRT. Metrolinx approved it. It's coming in. We're going to have 4 new lines by 2020, and these things are being built simultaneously. So what's that going to mean to traffic and those things? Time will tell once again. And last off, I want to talk about the Issues $50 Visa giveaway. We're giving away 2 Visa gift cards. In order to win them, you have to continue to watch. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode of The Issues.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Welcome back, everybody. Now I want to do what I'm calling the critique of Queen's Park, because our budget was just passed for the year of 2012, and there was a 2% increase that's going to the rich of the rich, and the rest of us, pretty much, we don't know what's going on because we really never do. So what I want to talk about more so than what exactly was in the budget is how the party sort of responded and reacted and acted in the first place to what went on in the budget. And we're going to start it with the Liberals, who proposed the budget in the first place. Now, they have a minority. They're about two votes away from getting anything passed, so they have to find compromise in everything they do. Now, In this particular case, the Conservative Party leader, Tim Hudak, decided not to negotiate with Dalton McGuinty, and we're going to get back to that afterwards. Right now, let's focus on the NDP. Now, the NDP basically sat down with Dalton McGuinty, as Andrea Horwath did, and worked out some sort of negotiations in order to allow the Liberal budget to pass. Some of the things she wanted was more money to daycare. She wanted to make sure that people that are collecting benefits make sure they get their benefits. She also wanted to see an increase in tax to people making over $500,000 and a few other things. Now, she got the majority of these things, maybe not exactly the way she wanted to get them or the exact way that they were going to be allocated. But in the end, more or less, with a little bit of compromise, they all found their way into the budget. And when they voted, she and her entire party abstained, which means that they just chose not to vote, which allowed the Liberals to carry their budget through. Now, let's talk about the Conservative Party for a second, because this is going to get interesting in the future. In order to basically stop the payments from rising in the public sector, and that's a wage freeze that Dalton McGuinty's trying to do, he's going to need those 2 votes again. And in order to get that, he's probably going to have to go to the Conservatives, because the NDP are usually in line with Labour. So they're not going to want to cut or salaries for people that are working in fields that are supporting them. That would just be foolish, and I understand that as any other person in the political realm would. Now, what's important here is Tim Hudak didn't even talk to Dalton McGuinty about what options he would like to have seen proposed in the budget, and it just seemed that there was no conversation had there. Now, Tim Hudak basically said that Dalton McGuinty didn't allow an opportunity to have that discussion, and Dalton McGuinty is saying that Tim Hudak never showed up. What truly happened, I don't know, and it's pretty much only in Queen's Park whether or not that information will make it to the light of day. Now, what I do know that is when the new legislation comes through that says that they're going to have a pay freeze in Ontario, Tim Hudak is going to have to agree to that with Dalton McGuinty, and there will have to be negotiation. Now, whether or not they get it or not is probably not going to lead to an election. It's just going to lead to whether or not the wage freeze actually comes into effect. And I don't know if Tim Hudak's going to be inclined to lay in bed with Dalton McGuinty and the Liberals in this matter. We'll have to wait and see. The bottom line here is what I want to sort of bring around this to is, was this the best decision for the NDP? Was that the best decision for the Conservatives? And was it the best decision for the Liberals? Obviously, the Liberals are happy. They're still in power. They are the minority government leader, and pretty much they get to put things forward. The NDP, on the other hand, they're kind of friendly with the Liberals right now, so maybe they'll get some things done. The Conservatives, on the other hand, aren't going to have. If you have a Conservative MPP in your area, don't call him, because he's not going to be able to do anything for you for the next year at least. So just finishing off on this is I want to say that the Liberals didn't want an election. The Conservatives didn't want an election, and the NDP didn't want an election. They're all saying that the province of Ontario didn't want an election. But the truth of the matter is the people that would have suffered most from an election would have been the Liberal Party. The NDP has never raised as much money as the Liberals. The Conservatives tend to raise as much money as the Liberals, but at the same point in time, the Conservatives don't seem to be moving up in the political realm in Ontario. It seems their leader has sort of led to a stalemate, and it doesn't seem that they're going to grow until either the leader finds a new personality or the party finds a new leader. But what I want to say is the NDP, I believe, is the ones that are going to suffer from this more than anybody else. And the reason for that is they will never raise as much money as the Liberals or the Conservatives. So the fact that the level playing field, or the playing field was somewhat leveled in this possible election situation, would have worked out to a great advantage to the NDP, as well as the fact that Dalton McGuinty would have been looking to get voted in for a 4th time, would have worked out as an advantage to everybody but the Liberal Party. Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, when they vote or abstain from vote, are they actually working out your best interest or theirs? And that's the question, and that's the one I want you to think about until next week's issues. Stay tuned, more coming your way.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back in to the issues. Now we're going to touch on what happened in Richmond Hill this week. A dog was assaulted, and more so assaulted, it was actually murdered. So what happened was a gentleman was walking around with a stick and with a nail or a pointy thing sticking out of the end of it, and this dog that was easily excitable but not vicious from what we're hearing ended up looking at him funny, and the next thing you know, he stabbed the dog. The dog ended up passing away, and the man has been charged with cruelty to animals. Now, he's probably looking at a potential of 5 years in jail for this. And I just wanted to say, if you get charged with killing a person and it's a form of manslaughter, which might not have been as premeditated as this might have been, I don't know the full details. Okay, and this is all alleged. I wasn't there. I don't know for a fact. But more importantly is if you are charged with manslaughter, you're looking at a 3-year jail term. So does the crime suit the sentence? I don't know. That's for society to decide. I am just trying to be a representative of society. But quickly, what I want to touch on here is what I believe is more important than anything else, and that's the way the community deals with mental health. And the reason for this is we've seen a few incidents in the past year, that people have been suffering with mental health end up getting the short end of the stick when dealing with the government. And what I mean by that is a couple of people last year were caught with scissors out in public and ended up dying by the hand of bullet. Other people were pushed around by police officers standing on the side of the Danforth and ended up having a heart attack. So mental illness and how the police deal with it is a serious concern. But more importantly, is there anything that we can do to sort of look at mental illness before it becomes a concern to society? In terms of like when you become a police officer, you have to go through, I believe, a CAM-H mental assessment and those sort of things. So I'm not saying that everybody needs to go through a mental assessment. I do believe that perhaps when you're charged with a criminal offense, that you should go through some sort of mental assessment, at least to see whether or not you are fit to stand trial. If you are not fit to stand trial, I believe it is the duty of the community to get you back to a level of fit or to find some sort of alternative for you in order for you to live your life peacefully without not only damaging your own future, but also that of your neighbors. Okay, so moving back to this sort of situation, I just wanted to say that one thing I believe is important is Rob Ford a few weeks back put out or made it more important that you walk your dog on a leash. And another thing that's very important is you see television shows like Dog Whisperer and so on, making sure your dog is well trained, and that's the owner's responsibility. Now, I'm not trying to blame the owner for what happened to their dog. What I'm trying to do is find a way to discourage this or slow it down from happening again. And the only way to do that is make sure that your dog is always on the best behavior that it could possibly be. Now, unfortunately, it is a living entity and you cannot control their behavior. But you can train it and do what you can to try to control it in a degree. And that's up to each and every person. And it's just like walking around with a weapon or driving a car. You know, a dog can be dangerous. So we have to make sure that when we get a pet, that we're responsible and that we have our eye on it. Not to say that the man who killed the dog was not at fault. I don't know the full details of the story. All I'm saying is dog maintenance, very important.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Thanks again, everybody. This is we're going to talk about education now. And what I want to talk about in education is, first, we're going to go to Quebec, which has had the longest protest in Canadian history with regards to education. Going on now for, I don't know, I believe it's 8 months, to be honest with you. And they're having a student strike there. It's been on and off. I believe more on than off. Now, what's important here is last night there was a protest where the Black Bloc sort of mentality came into effect. And what I mean by that is 80 people were arrested for basically a riot. And these riots don't seem to be in line with the protest. For the last months, this has been a predominantly peaceful issue. And even like weeks earlier this week, the Minister of Education in Quebec said they wanted to find some sort of truce with the student protesters. But at the same point in time, last night we're seeing an escalation. So is a truce on its way, or are we going to have more education problems in Canada? No one really knows, except for obviously the education minister and the students and whoever's leading this charge. But now we're going to bring that over here to Ontario, especially in the Toronto area, because I talked earlier in the show about a potential wage freeze. Now, the teachers are not on board with this in any way, shape, or form. The elementary school teachers walked away from talking with the Liberal government months ago, and the high school teachers have walked away since. And now, basically, that's why Dalton McGuinty is going to need Tim Hudak to sign off on the wage freeze. And the question here is even if they do force this wage freeze upon the teachers, is it going to basically stop them from striking? Is your child going to be going to school next week? We don't know yet. Well, this is going to be time to tell. And whether or not it's an illegal job action or a legal job action, I don't know. We still don't even know what happened. But what I wanted to touch here is basically, I've talked about it before, and it has to do with the wage freeze. Now, if you are a high school or elementary school principal, you are making a reasonably good paycheck, and you're probably not getting the incremental boosts like someone, let's say, that started last year. So if you started last year and you're making somewhere, these are hypothetical numbers, okay? So you started last year, and I'm doing them rounded so they're easier for everybody to understand. But if you started as a teacher last year and you made $50,000 a year and you're barely making it by with car payments, your mortgage, your insurance payments, and so on, and all of a sudden they're saying to you, you're going to have to keep this salary for a further year, 2 years, 3 years, that might be a reason for you to take on a second job. Now, if you're a high school principal, however, and you're making, let's say, $100,000 a year, and you're basically saving money to give towards your grandkids and so on, you might be less inclined to be so concerned about the wage freeze. And why I'm touching on this is education is the future. It's how basically we as a people educate or finance the next generation in order to improve upon society. Now, if we don't give our next generation that option, if we keep cutting and freezing and not giving the teachers the incentive that they need in order to provide the education that we want for our young people, our future is going to be dire. So make sure if you do talk to your Conservative member of provincial parliament, make sure that they know that you're not in the line with this. This is not what the best interest of Ontario is. We need an intelligent pay structure. We need to stop paying people for doing a bad job and stop encouraging that. We need to start giving bonuses to people that do a good job. And we need to start paying people on a fair level where they're getting not only a fair salary, fair benefits, but a whole package that's fair, because you don't see these sort of things on the private sector. So this is more of a public sector issue. Is it going to be solved? Fall will tell.
Hello and thanks for watching. We hope you are enjoying this week's show. If you or someone you know has something to talk about and would like to get it out, come on an episode of The Issues. Please call or email the number on the screen. Once more, thanks for tuning in this week, and we hope to see you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this week's episode. I want to send a shout out to GW and Scott, even though he wasn't here today. Without you guys, this wouldn't be able to happen. And now, as always, we're going to talk about transit. It seems Metrolinx, which is Ontario's TTC, if you will, has approved the LRT lines in Toronto. The 4 lines will be coming in by a deadline of 2020. Finch, Shepherd is getting the Scarborough line, and then they're going to have the Eglinton Underground one, which will be closing out in 2020. That one will be finished. The other ones will be done before. But these are pretty much going to be simultaneous builds, which means that they're all going to be happening at the same time. Now, the TTC says that they are investigating, and Metrolinx have said they have investigated the idea of separating it out over spaces to try to reduce congestion in traffic. But the truth of the matter is Toronto without any construction, well, that's a lie. We have 2 seasons in Toronto. We have winter and construction. So in the construction or summer season, we already have a serious traffic issue in the city. And now how are we going to solve that? By building fast transit? I don't know if this is really the right answer. I hope when they do build these things, they realize let's start on the east in one and let's start on the west in the other, rather than congesting the whole east side of the city all at once. But honestly, given the history of development in our city, I don't know if that's going to 100% be the case. As well as right now, I wanted to quickly take the opportunity to sort of rally people behind the idea of a Metrolinx lottery. My goal of this is inevitably to make it so that the transit system here in Toronto and even around Ontario become reduced in fares in order to providing a greater service to more people. And last off, I want to basically say that a subway system across Shepherd would have been a better idea. I'm not in favor of it because of the fact that we can't afford it. But to be honest, they're planning on the Shepherd LRT to be finished by 2018. So what would it do to sort of slow that process down? Let's speed up the Eglinton line and make that one have a quicker resolution or come to term quicker. And let's see if in the next 2 years we can sort of find the money in order to produce the Shepherd line. And continue to make it subway. I just quickly want to say that the big problem with the Shepherd line that I see it right now is that the City of Toronto is dumping $10 million into this thing every year in order to keep it afloat. Now, that's not going to stop until we make that line profitable. And the only way to make the line profitable is by building it, making it bigger and faster. Now, the provincial government is going to do that in the next few years, but if you're going to have to get off the subway of Shepherd and onto an LRT, it's still going to discourage ridership, and that should not be what we're doing. I am a fan of the LRT. I think fast transit is the way to go. I think getting it up fast is the way to go, but we're already half done the subway system there, and it seems like this is sort of, pardon my French, and I don't usually swear in these things, but this is sort of a half-ass measure. In order to get this done right, we need to build that subway, and we need to find the money, whether we put on a concert at Downsview, whether we upping fares is not an option. Road tolls are not an option. If you want to charge road tolls, you got to improve the quality of those roads. We can't be driving around on what we're driving at, stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and then asking people to pay an additional fee simply because you want to provide transportation to people that aren't driving. And that's the bottom line. You can't say to people who are taking their cars, we're going to charge you more because we're going to cause you less congestion. Because to be honest, for the next 3 years, you're going to have 4 years, to be honest, you're going to have more congestion than you ever imagined. And this is going to go on actually till 2020. So remember, if you hear the word road tolls, just remember the 407 is probably one of the most argued businesses in Ontario. And most people are not satisfied with the way that operation is run. And I also want to quickly just say that it is the only private entity that is allowed to cease your driver's license from you for lack of payment. So keep these things in mind. And it's not your driver's license. You're not allowed getting your car registered if you don't pay the 407. And that's a private entity. So if you are not happy with your relationship with the 407, you feel you've been double billed, or the information they have against you is incorrect, or someone stole your transponder and ended up racking up a bill on the 407 for you, it's very hard to deal with them. And the provincial government backs them. So the idea of charging road tolls on any other road, highways, whatever it be, the only way I would suggest that these things should be allowed is if it's one lane or something along the lines of that. But I think right now what we should be focusing on in the City of Toronto is bike lanes and how exactly those were implemented during the Miller years and how we're actually going to make them work during the Ford years. This is David Epstein, and I hope to see you next week on this issue of The Issues.